This is another what if video, and since the 20th death anniversary of Chris Farley is approaching on December 18th, I figure I'd do a video about what would Chris Farley's career would continue to look like if he did not pass away on December 18th, 1997. I think he would have had done some voice acting and animation since he was at one point the original Shrek. Before his death, he almost finished his recording works as Shrek with Eddie Murphy as Donkey. Chris did a nice job voicing Shrek, so Shrek would have been totally different with Chris as Shrek. And you could see at that point he was going into a more serious role because Chris was tired of being known as the big funny guy. He wanted to go in a more deeper, serious role. Due to his death, it never happened, obviously. Mike Myers took over the role, also rewriting the script. Mike Myers, he does a great job doing Shrek, especially with the Scottish accent. I also heard one woman was originally supposed to do the voice of Fiona before getting Cameron Diaz. I think Shrek still would have been successful with Chris doing the voice of Shrek. There are plenty of videos of him voicing Shrek on YouTube, so you can check it out if you haven't seen it. Just put in Chris Farley voicing Shrek and you'll find it. You'll see the results. Anyone remember the Walt Disney movie Dinosaur? Well, Farley was slated for a voice role as a young Brachiosaurus, but due to his passing, the character was rewritten as Baleen. I think Chris in the 2000s and 2010s still would have a very successful career in movies, since there are movies he was supposed to be in. He would have been in Lost and Found with David Spade. His role went to Artie Lang. He was planning on starring in a biography about Herman Goering. Farley expressed interest in portraying as Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle in a biopic movie. He wasn't the only one, as John Belushi and John Candy were involved in portraying as Fatty Arbuckle too. Unfortunately, none of the three men had the opportunity to do it since they died before production. I feel as though if the three men were still alive together today, I think Belushi would have gotten the role since he died before John Candy and Chris. It was like some curse for the three, and it's quite sad that none of them never had the shot to portray as Fatty Arbuckle. It would have been amazing for it to happen. You may not know this, but Chris was supposed to be in the Grown Ups movie series, as the script for the first one was written in the early 90s. Not to mention, Chris would have gotten all the roles Kevin James received in the movies he was in with Adam Sandler. Since Chris passed away, and Adam Sandler and Kevin James are good friends, Adam Sandler figured he'd give the role to Kevin James. Think about it. The Grown Ups movie series stars, besides Kevin James, who was never in Saturday Night Live, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, David Spade, and Rob Schneider. Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, David Spade, and Rob Schneider were the bad boys of Saturday Night Live in the 90s along with Chris Farley. So it would make sense that Farley, Sandler, Rock, Spade, and Schneider would be in the movie series. Like Grown Ups was a SNL reunion movie. And I heard a lot of people did not like Grown Ups 1 or 2. They said it sucked and it just failed. So, if Chris Farley was still alive and had that role, would Grown Ups and Grown Ups 2 would have been more successful and funnier if Chris was in the movie with the other guys? Maybe, it's possible. I think Farley would have been in Chuck and Larry with Sandler instead of Kevin James. Chuck and Larry was a funny movie, but imagine seeing Farley and Sandler as a married homosexual couple for Pretend. That would have been even more hilarious. Would that mean Kevin James' career wouldn't be so successful? I doubt it, since he rose to fame with the help of his sitcom, The King of Queens, that ran from September 21st, 1998 to May 14th, 2007 for 9 seasons on CBS. That's where he gained his recognition. I think Kevin James would still be successful in other movie roles. Some say if Chris Farley never passed away, he probably would have been Paul Blart, the mall cop instead of Kevin James. Now that one I highly doubted. I couldn't see Chris Farley in that movie. I think Kevin James was more suited for that role for a reason. There are also people saying on the internet that Kevin James and Jack Black are the new Chris Farley. Here we go. There is no such thing as the new Chris Farley, so stop it. And you have people asking if Chris Farley was still alive, would Kevin James and Jack Black still be well known, or will they disappear, or they will be overshadowed by Chris and all this? I think Chris would be more well known, more popular, and would have a bigger fan base than both James and Black. I still think Kevin James and Jack Black would still be popular as they are today, but I think if Chris was still alive, I don't think they would have been as popular or as well known, or may not have that much of a big fan base than Chris Farley. Right now, would you say that Chris Farley is well known and more popular than Kevin James and Jack Black? I mean, probably not. It seems as though Kevin James and Jack Black are more well known today, since Chris Farley passed away 2 decades ago, 20 years ago, on December 18th, 1997. So obviously people who were born in the late 90s and obviously in the 2000s, I'm sure a lot of them will probably not know who Chris Farley is, and they're probably well known of Kevin James and Jack Black. Not to say all, but who's to say? You may have some out there who were born in the late 90s and in the 2000s who do know Chris Farley, who are well known of him. But I can't say everybody that was born in the late 90s and in the 2000s really know who Chris Farley is compared to Kevin James and Jack Black. Also, with Chris Farley right now, would he be married and have a family? Chris Farley would be 53 right now, going on 54 in the next 2 months. I think if he was still alive, I think he would eventually gotten married. I couldn't see the guy still being single at 53. I think he would have gotten married and would have had children. And who's to say? Maybe if that exotic dancer he was with at the time he passed away, Heidi Hauser, if she actually gave a damn about Chris more than about getting her money from him and just leaving him even after he told her, don't leave me, don't leave me, but she did, and then took a picture of him. Maybe if she actually would have gave a damn, she probably could have been his future wife. She could have been Heidi Hauser Farley. So who knows? This has been my what would Chris Farley's career look like if he never died? Oh, plus I also think Chris would have done movies with Will Ferrell. Man, Chris Farley and Will Ferrell doing movies together, they would have been hilarious. It would have been hilarious seeing Chris Farley and Will Ferrell together on screen. Man, that would have been one funny duo. Oh my goodness. Heck, I think Chris Farley would have done movies with Melissa McCarthy. Them together would have been funny too. What do you think Chris Farley's career would have looked like if he never passed away? Do you think him being the voice of Shrek, the movie still would have been successful and still a big hit as it is today? Do you think Chris Farley being in Grown Ups 1 and 2 would have been a big help? It would have been more successful and funnier if Chris was in that role instead of Kevin James? Could you see Chris Farley in Chuck and Larry with Adam Sandler instead of Kevin James? Do you think his movie career would still be successful today? Do you think Kevin James and Jack Black will still be well known and popular as they are today? Or do you think Chris finally will be married and have kids?